The massive hall was quiet as death. Captain Daeho. Kim stood in the center looking up at the 7 giant thrones. Each throne held a different alien species, and each one looked down at him with cold eyes. The Galactic Council had made their decision, and everyone in the room knew what was coming. Daeho wore his best uniform, the dark blue fabric pressed and clean. His hands stayed at his sides, even though he wanted to clench them into fists. Behind him stood the other human representatives. Dr. Youngmi Park held her datapad so tight her knuckles were white. Major Junseok Lee stood like a statue, his soldier training keeping him perfectly still. The hall itself was a marvel of alien engineering. Crystals grew from the walls, giving off soft blue light. The ceiling stretched so high it seemed to touch the stars themselves. Floating platforms carried alien reporters and observers who had come to watch the humans get thrown out of the galaxy. Supreme Arbiter Valtharion sat on the highest throne. His body looked like it was made of living crystal with sharp edges that caught the light. When he moved, the sound was like wind chimes in a storm. His voice echoed through the hall, making everyone listen. We have gathered here today to decide the fate of the human species in our galaxy, Valtharion said slowly. Each word seemed to hang in the air for a long time. The humans have been with us for 50 years. They came from their small blue world, asking to join our peaceful union. Daeho remembered that day when the first human ships had arrived. The aliens had been curious about these new creatures who looked so different from them. Humans had no scales like the Zephyrians, no glowing skin like the Luminari, no crystal bodies like Valtharion's people. They were just flesh and blood, but they had built ships that could cross the stars in 50 years. The humans have shown us their true nature, Valtharion continued. His crystal eyes focused on Daeho like laser beams. They fight too much. They argue with our decisions. They refuse to follow our peaceful ways. They are dangerous. The Zephyrian representative clicked her mandibles together, making a sound like breaking glass. Her 6 arms moved as she spoke. The humans question everything they see. They want to know why we do things the way we do. They make us uncomfortable with their strange ideas. Daeho wanted to laugh. The aliens were upset because humans asked questions. They had built this perfect society where everyone agreed with each other, where no one rocked the boat, but humans were different. Humans always asked with a Luminari. Representative pulsed with angry red light floating above his throne like an angry ghost. They refuse to accept our wisdom. We have lived in peace for thousands of years before they came. Now there are fights in the council meetings, arguments over simple decisions. They have brought chaos to our order. Dr. Youngmi Park stepped forward slightly. Her voice was calm, but Daeho could hear the anger underneath. Honored council members, we have tried to warn you about the signals from beyond the rim. Something is coming, something that will threaten all of us. We need to prepare. Silence fell over the hall. The alien representatives looked at each other. Some clicked, some pulsed with light, some made sounds humans could not understand. Finally, Valtharion spoke again. More fear-mongering, more attempts to make us afraid. The humans always see danger where there is none. They want us to build weapons to prepare for war, but we are a peaceful people. We have no enemies. Daeho felt his heart sink. They had detected the strange signals months ago. Ships, or something like ships, moving in the dark space between galaxies. The energy readings were unlike anything in their databases. Dr. Park had run the numbers over and over. The conclusion was always the same. Something big was coming, and it was not friendly. The Altarian representative spoke next, her voice like singing crystal. The humans have contaminated our youth with their ideas of adventure and exploration. Young Altarians now ask to join human expeditions to dangerous places. They want to take risks instead of staying safe in our cities. That was true, Daeho thought. Human ideas did tend to spread. Young aliens from all species had started asking questions about the galaxy beyond their safe borders. Some had even requested to join human exploration missions to see what was out there. The Vorthic representative made a sound like grinding stone. The humans reproduce too quickly. They have too many children. They will outnumber us in a few hundred years. Their colonies grow larger every year. Daeho almost smiled at that. One, humans did have more children than most alien species, but they also died younger. Human lifespans were short compared to aliens who could live for thousands of years. Major Junseok Lee remained perfectly still, but Daeho could see the muscle in his jaw twitch. The soldier had fought In the border conflicts where human colonies had been attacked by pirates and raiders, while the council debated, humans had bled and died protecting innocent people. The final representative was from the Nagsari. Their leader spoke through a translation device. Since their language was pure mathematics, the statistical probability of human violence is 37% higher than the galactic average. They settle disputes through combat rather than negotiation. Voltharion raised his crystal hand for silence. The evidence is clear. The humans are too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous to remain in our peaceful galaxy. By the unanimous vote of the 7 founding species, humanity is hereby banished from all council territories. The words hit like a physical blow. Deho had expected this, but it still hurt to hear. Youngmi Park made a small sound like a sob. Junsuk Lee hands moved toward his weapons before he caught himself. You have 30 standard days to evacuate all human settlements from council space. Valtharion continued. Any human vessel found within our borders after that time will be destroyed without warning. Your species is no longer welcome among civilized people. Deho stepped forward, his boots clicking. On the polished floor, he looked up at the 7 thrones, at the aliens who had decided his people's fate. His voice was calm and steady. We understand your decision, he said, but I want you to remember this day. Remember it well when the darkness comes and your perfect peaceful galaxy is threatened. Remember that you threw away the one species that might have saved youth. Alien representatives shifted uncomfortably. Some pulsed with angry light, others clicked their mandibles, but none spoke. Dr. Youngmi Park stepped up beside him. The signals are getting stronger every day, she said quietly. What we detected is real, and it is coming. Whether you believe us or not. Major Jinseok Lee moved to Deho's other side. The soldier said nothing, but his presence was like a promise of violence barely held in check. The 3 humans turned and walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the massive hall behind them. The alien representatives began talking among themselves, their relief obvious. Now they could go back to their peaceful, perfect galaxy without the troublesome humans to disturb them. As they reached the door, Deho looked back one last time at the 7 thrones, at the aliens who thought they knew better. The hall was already returning to its normal soft blue glow, as if nothing important had happened. But something important had happened. The council had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They had given humanity exactly what it needed to become something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The door closed behind them with a soft sound like a tomb sealing shut. The evacuation began 3 days after the council verdict. Ships of every size and shape streamed out of human colonies across the galaxy. Old cargo haulers, family transports, military vessels, and converted mining ships all carried the same precious cargo. Humans leaving their homes behind. To the alien observers watching from their safe worlds, it looked like chaos. Millions of humans scrambling to pack their lives into whatever ships they could find, children crying as they left the only homes they had ever known, adults arguing about what to take and what to leave behind. The aliens felt satisfied watching their problem solve itself. But Captain Deho Kim knew better. He stood on the bridge of the transport ship New Seoul, watching the evacuation fleets move through space with careful precision. What looked like panic to alien eyes was actually the most organized operation in human history. Admiral Hyun-woo Nam coordinated everything from his flagship. The inch in his weathered face showed the strain of managing thousands of ships, but his eyes held a different light, something that looked almost like excitement. Every ship movement, every supply transfer, every family relocation was part of a plan that had been years in the making. Commander, we have reports from all sectors, came the voice of his communications officer, Lieutenant Bora Shin. Evacuation proceeding on schedule. All ships are maintaining their assigned routes. Nam nodded slowly. The aliens thought they were watching humans run away in fear. They had no idea they were witnessing the largest military deployment in galactic history, disguised as a refugee crisis engineer. Sojin Choi worked without sleep in the Outer Rim colonies. Her teams had been busy for months converting abandoned mining stations into something completely different. The rock processing equipment had been replaced with fabrication units. Metal refineries had become weapons factories deep in the asteroid belts where no alien ship ever traveled. Humans were building an armada. The work was dangerous. Sojin herself had nearly been killed when a reactor overload sent radiation flooding through mining station Eco 7. But her people kept working because they understood what was at stake. The aliens had thrown humanity out of their perfect galaxy, but they had also given humans something precious: time to prepare. Dr. Youngmi Park established her research facilities in the empty spaces between star systems, places where the background radiation was so high that alien sensors could not detect human activity. Her laboratories worked around the clock, analyzing the signals from beyond the galactic rim. The readings were getting stronger every day. Whatever was coming toward their galaxy was massive beyond imagination. The energy signatures suggested ships or creatures the size of moons. Maybe larger. The patterns in the signals showed intelligence, but not the kind that could be reasoned with. They consume everything, Park told her research team during one of their briefings. The data suggests they strip entire star systems of matter, leaving nothing but empty space. They are not invaders in any sense we understand. They are more like a force of nature. Her assistant Dr. Kang Min Yoon studied the latest readings. The approach vector puts them at the Altarian colonies first, he said quietly. If our calculations are correct, first contact will happen in less than 2 years. Park nodded grimly. The Altarians were one of the species that had voted to banish humanity. Their crystal cities were beautiful, and their art was famous throughout the galaxy. In 2 years, they would be the first to face whatever was coming from the dark. Meanwhile, the human exodus continued, but not in the direction the aliens expected. Instead of fleeing to the outer rim, many human ships headed toward the galactic core, to regions that had been explored, but never colonized. The space between spiral arms where ancient stars burned dim and cold. Major Jin Seok Lee, now promoted to colonel, commanded the military aspects of the evacuation. His soldiers moved through the colonies, not just protecting civilians but securing equipment and supplies that would be needed later. Weapons manufacturing, data, genetic samples from every human world, technological innovations that humans had developed during their time among the aliens. The aliens had shared their technology freely with humans, thinking it would help them become more civilized. What they did not realize was that human engineers had been studying everything, learning how alien technology worked and finding ways to make it better. Human minds worked differently than alien ones. Aliens built technology that was elegant and efficient, but also predictable. Humans built technology that was messy and complex, but also adaptive. Human machines could be repaired with spare parts. Human computers could be reprogrammed on the fly. Human weapons could be modified for new threats. Jin Choi discoveries were proof of this. Her teams had taken alien shield generators and improved their power output by 30%. They had modified alien engines to run on fuels that could be found anywhere in space. They had even created new alloys that were stronger than anything in the alien databases. The most important discovery came from Dr. Park's research team. They had found a way to detect the approaching threat using modifications to alien sensor technology. The signals that had first alerted them to the danger could now be tracked with precision. They could see exactly where the threat was coming from and how fast it was moving. The news was not good. The approaching entities were not just large, they were numerous, hundreds of massive signatures moving through the void between galaxies like a swarm of cosmic locusts. Each one was the size of a small moon, and they moved with purpose. Admiral Nam received the reports in his command center deep inside the Ancient. The ship itself was not what it appeared to be on the outside. It looked like a standard heavy transport, but hidden within its hull were weapon systems that could destroy entire fleets. The Ancient was just one of dozens of ships that had been secretly converted during the evacuation. Sir, we have confirmation from long-range scouts, came the report from Lieutenant Shin. The first wave will reach Altarian space in 18 months standard time. The main swarm follows approximately 6 months behind them. Studied the tactical displays showing the approaching threat. The aliens had no idea what was coming. They were still celebrating their victory over the troublesome humans, still convinced that their peaceful galaxy was safe from harm. But Nam knew better. The humans had been preparing for this moment since the first signals were detected. Every ship that left human space carried more than just refugees. They carried weapons, supplies, equipment, and most importantly, knowledge about how to fight an enemy that could not be negotiated with. The evacuation was nearly complete. Now the last human colonies were being abandoned. Their populations moved to secret bases in the dark regions of space. The aliens watched The final ships disappear into the void and felt relief that their problem was finally solved. What they did not see were the hidden shipyards, already producing vessels designed for war, the research stations analyzing alien weaknesses, the training facilities where human soldiers learned to fight in space, the command centers where human strategists planned for battles that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Colonel Lee reported to Admiral Nam from the final evacuation point, all personnel and critical equipment have been relocated to designated positions, he said. The aliens believe we have fled to the outer rim, but we are actually positioned throughout the galaxy in locations they cannot detect. Nam nodded. The humans had used their time in council space wisely. They had learned about alien technology, alien tactics, alien psychology. They knew how each species would react to different threats. They knew the locations of every important military installation, every major population center, every critical resource. But most importantly, they had learned that the aliens, despite all their advanced technology and ancient wisdom, had one critical weakness. They had become soft. Living in peace for thousands of years had made them forget how to fight, how to adapt, how to survive when faced with something that wanted to destroy them. The evacuation ships disappeared into the cosmic dark, carrying their human cargo to secret bases scattered throughout the galaxy. The aliens celebrated their victory, never suspecting that they had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. They had given humanity exactly what it needed to become the galaxy's hidden guardians, armed with alien technology, driven by human determination and motivated by the knowledge that something terrible was coming. The banished humans began their real work. The aliens thought they had solved their human problem, but they had actually created something far more dangerous than they could imagine. In the darkness between the stars, humanity was preparing for war. 25 years had passed since the great human exodus. The Galactic Council had long forgotten about their former members. Those troublesome humans were just an unpleasant memory now, something to laugh about at diplomatic gatherings. The galaxy was peaceful again, trade was good, and the 7 species congratulated themselves on their wisdom. On the crystal world of Veltharium, the Supreme Arbiter hosted grand celebrations, marking another year of galactic harmony. His crystalline palace rang with the sounds of alien music, while dignitaries from across the galaxy praised the Council's success in maintaining peace. The banishment of humanity was held up as proof that the Council could make hard decisions when necessary, but in the darkness beyond, the galactic rim sensors watched and waited. Human outposts invisible to Council detection methods monitored every transmission, every ship movement, every political development. The humans had become the galaxy's unseen guardians, and what they saw in the deep void terrified them. Commander Taeyong Song floated in the observation deck of monitoring station Sigma 9, built inside a dead comet at the very edge of galaxy. The station was completely dark from the outside, looking like just another piece of space debris, but inside dozens of humans worked around the clock, tracking signals from the intergalactic void. The readings today were worse than ever, Commander Song told his communications officer, Lieutenant Haewon. Kim, the energy signatures are off the charts. Whatever is coming, it is bigger than our worst projection. Song had been watching the void for 15 years, ever since graduating from the secret naval academy that humans had built in the Oort cloud of an abandoned star system. He had seen the signals grow stronger, watched the approaching darkness get closer, and reported his findings to Admiral Nam, who was now in command of all human forces. The entities they were tracking had been given a name by Dr. Young-Mi Park's research teams, the Devourers. It was an accurate description based on what they had learned from long-range observations. The creatures were massive biomechanical entities that consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space where worlds and suns had once existed. Dr. Park herself now worked from a research facility built inside a rogue planet that drifted through interstellar space. Her teams had spent decades analyzing the signals, studying the patterns, trying to understand what humanity would soon face. Her latest report made for grim reading. The Devourers operate as a collective intelligence, she had written in her classified briefing to Human Command. They strip mine entire solar systems for raw materials, which they use to build more of themselves. Each individual unit is the size of a large moon, but they work together like cells in a single organism. The research showed that the Devourers had already consumed 3 neighboring galaxies, leaving behind vast empty regions of space where millions of civilizations had once thrived. They moved like a cosmic plague, jumping from galaxy to galaxy and growing stronger with each conquest. What made them truly terrifying was their ability to adapt. The few surviving records from the destroyed galaxies showed that the Devourers could analyze any weapon used against them and quickly develop countermeasures. They learned from every encounter, becoming more effective with each battle commander. Song received a priority transmission from Deep Space Observation Post Delta 12. The message was brief but chilling: first contact in 18 months, main swarm arrival in 24 months. Recommend immediate alert status. Song felt his stomach drop. The moment they had all been dreading was finally here. The Devourers had reached the outer edge of their galaxy, and first contact would happen at the Altarian colonies. The same species that had celebrated humanity's banishment would be the first to face the cosmic horror approaching from the void. He opened a secure channel to Admiral Nam, who was now based on the massive battleship Bizon. Hidden in the debris field of a shattered moon, the Admiral had aged considerably over the past 25 years, but his eyes still held the same determination that had carried humanity through their exile. Admiral, we have confirmation. Song reported the Devourers will reach Altarian space in 18 months standard time. The main swarm follows 6 months later. Nam was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of decisions that would affect entire civilizations. Alert all commanders, he said. Begin Phase 3 preparations. It is time to reveal ourselves. Phase 3 was the final stage of humanity's long preparation. During their 25 years of exile, they had built a military force that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. Hidden shipyards scattered throughout the cosmos had produced thousands of warships designed specifically to fight the Devourers. The ships were unlike anything in the galactic databases. Human engineers had abandoned the elegant curves and smooth lines favored by alien designers. Instead, they built vessels that looked like mechanical predators, all sharp angles and brutal efficiency. Every surface bristled with weapons. Every system was designed for war. Admiral Nam moved through the command center of the Bizon, surrounded by officers who had spent their entire careers preparing for this moment. The ship itself was a marvel of human engineering, nearly 10 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could crack planets. The aliens had no idea such vessels existed. Captain Daeho Kim, now a senior commander in the human fleet, received his orders from the secure communication array. His ship, the new Incheon, was part of the advanced reconnaissance force that would make first contact with the Devourers when they arrived. He had trained for this mission for over 2 decades. The human fleet was organized differently than anything the Council species could imagine. Instead of the rigid hierarchies favored by alien militaries, humans used flexible command structures that could adapt quickly to changing situations. Every captain was trained to operate independently. Every crew member understood the larger mission. Colonel Junseok Lee commanded the ground forces that would be needed if the war reached inhabited worlds. His soldiers trained in conditions that would have killed most alien warriors. They could fight in hard vacuum, survive on dead worlds, and operate equipment in environments that were hostile to life itself. But the humans' greatest advantage was not their technology or their training. It was their psychology. The aliens had grown soft during their thousands of years of peace. They had forgotten what it meant to fight for survival. Humans had never forgotten. They carried the memory of their homeworld, where survival meant constant struggle against a hostile environment. Youngni Park made her final preparations at the research station. Her teams had developed weapons specifically designed to disrupt the Devourers' collective intelligence if they could break the connection between individual units. The massive swarm might become vulnerable to conventional attacks. The plan was desperate and dangerous, but it was the only hope the galaxy had. The aliens continued their peaceful existence, unaware that cosmic death was approaching their borders. They had no weapons capable of fighting the Devourers, no experience with warfare on this scale, no understanding of what was coming. Meanwhile, the hidden human fleets moved through the darkness, taking positions throughout the galaxy. Each ship carried not just weapons and supplies, but the hopes of every living being in the galactic community. The species that had banished humanity for being too violent were about to discover that violence was exactly what they needed. The countdown had begun. In 18 months, the Devourers would arrive at the first inhabited system. The perfect peaceful galaxy that the Council had worked so hard to create was about to face its ultimate test, and only the banished humans were ready to fight back. The first sign of the Devourers came not as ships or signals but as silence. The Altarian colony of Velcresh simply stopped transmitting during a routine morning communication check. The crystal cities that had sparkled with life for thousands of years went dark as if they had never existed at all. The Altarian homeworld received the last transmission from Velcresh at exactly 0847 Galactic Standard Time. The message was brief and terrifying. Something is blocking out the sun. The sky is filled with dark shapes that move like living things. The crystal resonators are screaming, "We are then nothing." The Altarian Council tried to contact the colony for 3 days, sending increasingly desperate messages into the void. Finally, they sent a small exploration fleet to investigate what they assumed was a communication breakdown. The 5 ships that arrived at Velcresh found something that shattered their understanding of reality. The star system was empty, not abandoned or destroyed, but completely absent of matter. The star itself was gone, along with every planet, every asteroid, every particle of cosmic dust. The space where Velcresh had existed was now a perfect vacuum containing nothing but the background radiation of deep space. Captain Mordek of the exploration ship Crystal Song transmitted his report back to the home world with a voice that shook with terror. "The system is gone," he said. "Everything is gone. There is no debris, no energy signatures, no trace that anything ever existed here. It is as if the entire system was erased from existence." The news spread through the Galactic Council like wildfire. The 7 founding species called emergency sessions, trying to understand what could have happened. The Luminari suggested it was some kind of natural phenomenon, perhaps a gravity wave or exotic matter event. The Zephyrians proposed that it might be an experimental weapon that had malfunctioned. Supreme Arbiter Valtharion convened the full council in the Great Hall where 25 years earlier they had banished humanity. His crystalline form reflected the worried faces of the alien delegates as he tried to maintain order during the heated debates. "We must remain calm," he said, though his own voice carried undertones of panic. "Whatever happened at Velcresh, we will find a scientific explanation. The galaxy is vast, and there are phenomena we do not yet understand." But even as he spoke, more reports came in. Another Altarian colony had gone silent, then a research station, then an entire mining fleet. The pattern was always the same: a brief panic transmission describing impossible things in the sky, then absolute silence. The Council ordered more investigation fleets to examine the affected areas, but they found the same thing each time: perfect emptiness where star systems had once existed. The Devourers were working their way through the galaxy, consuming everything in their path and leaving only void behind. It was during the investigation of the 3rd missing system that the mysterious ships appeared. The Council fleet, commanded by Admiral Zendek, was studying the empty space where the Kepler 442 system had once existed when the sensor operator reported massive energy signatures. "Approaching, sir. We have unknown vessels incoming." The Zephyrian officer reported, "The designs are not in our databases, but they appear to be using advanced technology." Admiral Zendek ordered his fleet to battle stations, expecting to face whatever force had destroyed the missing systems. Instead, he found himself staring at ships that looked familiar yet impossibly advanced. The hull designs were clearly based on human technology, but scaled up and modified in ways that defied alien understanding. The lead ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of the Council's largest dreadnought. Its angular hull bristled with weapon systems that radiated power signatures beyond anything in the galactic database. When it transmitted a message, the voice that came through made Admiral Zendek's crystal shell crack with shock. "This is Captain Daeho Kim of the Human Defense Force." The voice was older now, weathered by decades of command, but unmistakably human. "We are here to help the same human who had stood before the Council 25 years ago as a desperate ambassador had returned, but he was no longer the same man." The Captain Kim, who spoke now, commanded a fleet that stretched across multiple star systems. Each ship was a masterpiece of Military engineering designed for one purpose: to fight and win against. Impossible odds. Admiral Zendek found his voice with difficulty. Captain Kim, you were banished from council space. Your presence here is illegal. Kim's response was calm and measured. Admiral, the legal niceties that your council cares about are meaningless now. Something is consuming your galaxy, and we are the only ones who can stop it. As if summoned by his words, the human fleet began to decloak. Ships appeared from empty space, using stealth technology that made them invisible to council sensors. The fleet was enormous, thousands of warships of every size and configuration, from small fast attack craft to massive battleships that dwarfed anything the council had ever built. Major Jun Seok Lee, now General Lee, commanded the military operations from his flagship, the Sol-class command vessel Indomitable. His weathered face showed the strain of 25 years of preparation, but his eyes held the focused intensity of a soldier who finally had a mission worthy of his training. We have been watching you, he transmitted to the council fleet. We have been preparing for this day since you threw us out of your perfect galaxy. The things that destroyed your colonies are called devourers, and they are just the beginning. Dr. Youngmi Park spoke from her research vessel, the laboratory ship Eureka, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades studying the approaching threat. The main swarm is still 6 months away, but the advanced scouts are already in your territory. If you want to survive, you need to listen to us. The council fleet found itself surrounded by human ships that had appeared from nowhere. Each vessel represented technology that should not have existed: stealth systems that could hide entire fleets, weapons that could level continents, and most importantly, knowledge about how to fight an enemy that consumed everything it touched. Engineer Sojin Choi transmitted technical data from her construction ship, the mobile shipyard Forge Master. The information showed defensive systems that could protect inhabited worlds, weapons that could damage the devourers, and most importantly, tactics that had been developed specifically for fighting a collective intelligence. Admiral Han Wu Nam appeared on the main communication screen, his admiral uniform bearing insignia that no council member recognized. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship, the Bison, showed activity that made the council ships look like museum pieces. 25 years ago, you decided we were too dangerous to be part of your galaxy. Nam said calmly, you were right, we are dangerous, but not to you. We are dangerous to the things that want to destroy everything you have built. The truth was undeniable. The humans had used their exile not to fade away, but to become something far more powerful than they had ever been while part of the council. They had taken the best of alien technology and improved it. They had built ships that could fight in ways the council had never imagined. They had prepared for a war that the council did not even know was coming. Supreme Arbiter Valtharian himself appeared on the communication channel, his crystalline form flickering with stress patterns that showed his emotional state. The council thought you had fled to the outer rim, he said. Why did you stay? Why did you prepare for this, Captain? Kim appeared on screen, his face showing the lines that came from years of carrying the weight of an entire species' survival. We tried to warn you, he said. We detected the signals 25 years ago. We knew something was coming. But you would not listen. You decided we were the problem instead of the solution. The human fleet held position around the council vessels, neither threatening nor retreating. They were waiting for a decision that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The species that had banished humanity for being too violent were about to learn that violence was exactly what the galaxy needed. Admiral Nam spoke again, his voice carrying the weight of authority earned through decades of preparation. We cannot force you to accept our help, but we will not stand by and watch entire civilizations be consumed. Choose quickly. The devourers do not wait for political decisions. The council fleet found itself facing a choice that would define the future of galactic civilization. They could maintain their pride and face the devourers with their own forces, or they could accept help from the species they had banished and admit that their perfect, peaceful galaxy needed warriors to survive. The silence stretched across space as the council made the hardest decision in their history. The war began 3 days after the council fleet encountered the returning humans. The main devourer swarm arrived at the galactic rim with a force that blocked out entire starfields. Millions of biomechanical entities, each the size of a small moon, swept through space like a cosmic plague, consuming everything in their path. The council species had never seen anything like it. Their elegant ships with their beautiful curved hulls and peaceful intentions were swept aside like leaves in a hurricane. The Zephyrian Third Fleet tried to make a stand at the Proxima defense line and was completely destroyed in less than an hour. Admiral Zendek transmitted his final report as his flagship was torn apart by creatures that seemed to be made of living metal and hungry darkness. They adapt to everything we throw at them, he said, his voice breaking with terror. Our weapons have no effect. They learn from each attack and become stronger. The Luminari attempted to use their advanced energy manipulation technology to disrupt the Devourer's power systems. The results were catastrophic. The creatures absorbed the energy attacks and used them to fuel their own growth. Within minutes, individual Devourer units had doubled in size, and their hunger had increased accordingly. Supreme Arbiter Velfarion watched the destruction from his crystal palace on the Galactic Council homeworld. His perfect peaceful civilization was crumbling around him as reports came in of entire sectors being consumed. The mathematical precision of the attack was terrifying. The Devourers moved through the galaxy like a carefully planned harvest, consuming star systems in order of their resource value. For the first time in his long life, Velfarion felt true fear. The Council's advanced technology, their thousands of years of accumulated wisdom, their diplomatic solutions to every problem, all of it was useless against an enemy that simply wanted to consume everything that existed. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Representatives from every species screamed accusations at each other while outside the Great Hall the galaxy burned. The Altarians blamed the Zephyrians for not detecting the threat earlier. The Luminari accused the Vorthak of hoarding military resources. The Nexari ran probability calculations that showed a 97% chance of galactic extinction. It was in the middle of this chaos that the human fleet arrived at the Council homeworld. Captain Daeho Kim stood once again in the Great Hall, but this time he wore the uniform of a fleet commander, and behind him stood officers whose very presence radiated competence and deadly purpose. We offered our help, Kim said quietly, his voice cutting through the alien arguments. You refused. Now 1/3 of your galaxy is gone, and the Devourers are accelerating their advent. Velfarion crystal form flickered with desperation. Captain Kim, please, he said, all of his former arrogance gone. We were wrong. We see that now. Your species' aggressive nature, your unpredictability, it was not a flaw. It was exactly what the galaxy needed. Kim looked at the alien representatives who had once voted to banish humanity. He saw fear in their eyes, the kind of terror that came from facing an enemy they could not understand or negotiate with. They had spent so long in their peaceful paradise that they had forgotten what it meant to fight for survival. You are right, Kim said, but it was already too late for apologies. It was too late the moment you decided we were the problem instead of the solution. But we will fight anyway, not for your council, not for your politics, but for every living being who deserves a chance to see tomorrow. Admiral Nam transmitted tactical data to the Council Defense Forces, showing them how human ships fought the Devourers. The human tactics were unlike anything in the military databases. Instead of the formal battle lines favored by alien commanders, humans used guerrilla warfare, hit and run attacks, and psychological warfare designed to disrupt the collective intelligence. General Lee deployed his ground forces to defend the remaining inhabited worlds. His soldiers used weapons and tactics that seemed primitive to alien observers but were devastatingly effective against the Devourers. Individual human fighters could survive in environments that killed alien soldiers, and their equipment could be repaired and modified in the field. Dr. Park research had yielded the most important discovery of all. The Devourers' collective intelligence had a weakness. If the connection between individual units could be disrupted, the massive swarm would become confused and vulnerable. Human weapons were specifically designed to exploit this weakness. Engineer Choi massive construction ships began building defensive installations around critical worlds. Her teams worked with desperate efficiency, knowing that every hour of delay meant more systems consumed by the approaching swarm. The fortifications they built were ugly and brutal, but they could withstand attacks that would shatter alien architecture. The human way of war was shocking to the Council species. Human ships fought with a savage efficiency that alien commanders found disturbing. They would ram enemy vessels, sacrifice themselves to save others, and fight on even when their ships were crippled and Burning Captain Kim stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching human and alien ships fight side by side against the Devourer swarm. The aliens were learning slowly how to fight an enemy that could not be reasoned with. Their elegant tactics were being replaced by human methods that emphasized survival over style. A young Altarian officer approached him, her crystal shell showing stress fractures from the constant battle. Captain Kim, she said, "Why do you fight for us after what we did to your people?" Kim looked at her for a long moment. "Because fighting is what humans do," he said simply. "We fight because someone has to. We fight because the alternative is extinction. We fight because it is who we are." The war raged across the galaxy, but for the first time since the Devourers had appeared, there was hope. Human fleets struck at the swarm from multiple directions, using tactics that confused and disrupted the collective intelligence. Small groups of human ships would appear from hyperspace, attack a section of the swarm, and disappear before the Devourers could adapt. A turning point came during the Battle of the Nexus Nebula. Admiral Nam led a combined human and alien fleet against the largest concentration of Devourers ever encountered. The battle lasted for 6 days, and when it was over, the main swarm intelligence had been shattered into smaller fragments that could be defeated. Individually, Supreme Arbiter Valtharion stood in the ruins of his crystal palace, watching human ships patrol the space around his world. The Great Hall, where humanity had been banished, was now a command center where human and alien officers worked together to coordinate the defense of the galaxy. Captain Kim found him there, staring at the tactical displays that showed the slow but steady progress against the Devourer fragments. "Your people saved us," Valtharion said quietly, his voice barely audible. "We owe you a debt that can never be repaid." Kim shook his head. "We did not save you to create debts," he said. "We saved you because it was the right thing to do. That is what humans do when faced with impossible choices. We do what is right." The war was not over. The scattered Devourer fragments still posed a threat, and it would take years to clear them all from the galaxy. But the worst was past. The collective intelligence that had consumed 3 neighboring galaxies had been broken, and the remaining creatures could be hunted down and destroyed. In the aftermath of the Great War, the Galactic Council was reformed. Human representatives took seats in the Great Hall, not as guests or supplicants, but as equal partners in galactic governance. The species that had once been considered too dangerous to live among civilized beings were now recognized as the galaxy's protectors. The lesson was hard but clear. Sometimes the very qualities that make someone difficult to live with are exactly what you need when the darkness comes calling. The Council had learned too late that their perfect, peaceful galaxy needed warriors to survive, but they had learned, and that was enough. The humans had returned not as conquerors but as guardians, ready to face whatever threats might emerge from the cosmic dark. They had proven that sometimes being dangerous was not a flaw but a necessity. The galaxy would never be the same, but it would survive, and in the end that was all that mattered.